Alright, yesterday we started talking about these functions, these piecewise functions, right? Y'all okay with piecewise functions? You understand what they are? You understand how to evaluate them? So, this was number 48 from your homework. It's kind of modified. They ask you about two values. I'm going to ask you about these three values. I want to know f of 3. When I look at f of 3, remember on the piecewise, you're specifying the domain. So here your x is 3, right? Where does what function does that fall upon? First, second, or third? What function is that? First, second, or third? Why is it the second? Because it's equal to 3, right? Why is it not the first one? Because that's not equal. It has to be less than 3. So we're going to plug it into this function right here, right? We plug in 3 for that. We get, what's 3 to the third? Try it again. That's 3 squared. 27. And you take the negative. It would be negative 27. Next one says f of 0. So where does 0 fall at? Good. It's less than 3, right? 0 is less than 3. So plug into this first one. What do you get? 3. And remember, these are just points. There's 3, negative 27, 0, 3. This one is 10. Which one does that one fall on? The last one. So what do you get for that? Plug in 10. 10 squared is what? 100 times 3 is 300 plus 1 is. So that's what we talked about yesterday. Everybody understand that? You're okay with that, right? We got that. No? Somebody say no? Somebody said no? For real? Okay. Next. So today we're going to talk about is domain and range. And specifically we're going to talk about domain and range from a graph. When you hear the words domain and range, what do you think about? X and Y values. Say it again, please. What do you think about? When you hear the words domain and range, what do you think about? Thank you so much. You think about X and Y values, right? The domain is the set of what values? Which one is the domain? The X values. The range is the set of... So, your domain is just going to be your domain is your X values. Your range is going to be your Y values. Now, what we're going to do now is actually look at graphs and try to write the domain from the graph, alright? In order to do that, when you read a graph, or when you read a graph, it's like reading a book. How do you read a book? Left to right. So when you read your domain, you're reading the X values from left to right. What does that really mean? If you're reading numbers left to right, what does that really mean? You're reading them from what values to what values? X. Try it again from the X or Y. You can't read X or Y, but if you read from left to right, you're really reading you're reading the X values from left to right. What are you really reading? Negatives to, thank you, or smallest to largest. So when you read this graph, you're going to read the domain of the X values from left to right. And when you go left to right, that means you're going from the negatives to the positives. When you read this graph, you're going from the bottom up. You're going from the bottom up. And when you read from the bottom up, that really means you're reading what? Again, negative to positive. So when you read X's, you read from the smallest X to the largest X. When you read Y's, you read from the smallest Y to the largest Y, right? On these graphs, you're going to see certain things. And you're going to see certain things that you might not have seen yet. You should have seen, but you might not have realized that you've seen them. You're going to see these open and closed circles. So let's talk about that real quick. So when we have open and closed circles, those represent whether you're excluding or including values, all right? And remember, we already talked about excluding and including. We exclude values when we have this symbol here, these symbols, right? Or you have these symbols also mean exclusion. In terms of a graph, and open circle means exclusion. We include values. You're going to include your values when you have these symbols here. So less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Or you have the brackets. And we show inclusion with the closed circle. So when you look at these graphs, you're going to have open and closed circles. The open circles mean what? exclude a value, then closed circles mean you are including a value. All right, so let's look at these graphs I gave you. Let's cut those out, please. Now, here's what I want to do. I want to write the domain and range of this graph. Does everybody understand that? How do you write the domain again? What do you look for? X values. And how do you write the range? Y values. So we're going to look at X and Y values from a graph. Everybody got that? So, on this graph, to write the domain, we're going to write it in two types of notation. We're going to write it in interval notation, and we're going to write it in inequality notation, all right? Well, we're going to write the interval first. So to write it in the interval notation, here's what we need to know. The domain of this function is interval notation. Look at the leftmost x value, the smallest x value. What's your smallest x value on this graph? -2. They're counting by 2, so it's -2. Does y'all see that? Do we include or exclude the 2 value? Do we include or exclude this value right here? Why do I include it? Closed circle, right? So if writing an interval we'll use, is that a bracket or a parentheses? So bracket, so I'm going from -2. What's the largest x value in this graph? 6. Do I include or exclude that 6? Why do I exclude it? Because it's an open circle. Do y'all see that? So this is the domain. Reading from left to right, the smallest x value is -2. We're including it. The largest x value is 6. We're excluding because of the open circle there. We understand that, right? Now, let's calculate the range then. To do the range is the smallest y value. What's the smallest y value in this graph? 0. Do we include or exclude 0? Well, at this point it's telling us to do what? Include it, right? But at this point it's telling us to do what? So my question is 0 part of your range? Will 0 ever be a part of your range? Yes or no? Yes, because why? This one tells me I have to do what here? This one tells me I have to actually include it. Does that make sense? So in order for this to work, for 0 to be a part of a range, you're always going, if you have a conflict like this, you always include it. Do you understand that? If you have a conflict, you always include it. So we're going to include 0. What's the largest y value? 4. Now, do I include or exclude 4? Is there any symbol there telling me to exclude it? No? Does everybody understand that? Is there any symbol there telling me to exclude it? How would I know if I need to exclude it or not? How would you know that? What would you have to have there? What would you have to have here to tell me it's excluding that value? An open circle. Do you see an open circle? No. So if there's nothing there to tell you to exclude it, you always include it. So this is going to be 0 to 4. You're always going to include unless you're told to exclude. Do you understand that? Always include unless you're told to exclude. Now that we have that, let's write this in terms of an inequality. What does an inequality mean again? Not equal to but what are the symbols for inequality? So that would be what? Less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or greater than, right? So based off this interval right here, -2 to 6, how would you write that? Where are your x values going from? -2 to 6, you understand that? So x is in between those two values. So your domain starts off like this. X is in between those two values. We include -2. How do you show inclusion? How do you show inclusion in terms of an inequality? Less than or equal to for this. These always point to the left. So you're going to include -2 here. And that's less than or equal to x, which is, do we include the 6? No, so it's just less than 6. Here's how you write the inequality for that. The range of the function. We're including both 0 and 4, right? So this will be 0 is less than or equal to, what comes in the middle? Y. Realize it's y this time because you're talking about the range now. 0 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 4. Y'all understand that? Let's give the next one a shot. Give this graph, do this graph next, please. Do this graph next, please. Write this in the interval and inequality, please. Alright, let's talk about the domain and range of this function. The domain, again, is the leftmost x value to the rightmost x value, right? So the domain in the interval notation, what is the leftmost x value on this graph? -6. Do I include or exclude the -6? How do I know to exclude it? So we have an open circle, so we'll put a -6 up to what next? So -2, why do we go to -2? Why not go all the way over here to the right? Because we have a gap, right? We actually have a gap here, so we're going to go to -2. Do we include or exclude the -2? Include it. Because we have this gap where it jumps to a different part of the function, what do you need to cover that gap? A union. Good, you need the union symbol. So we're going to cover the gap with the union. Then the next most x value is what? Do we include or exclude it? Include it, because it's closed circle, right? 2 to what? Positive infinity, good. Does everybody understand why you have the union here? The next part, the range. The smallest y value is what? Why is it negative infinity, not -8? Because this arrow goes down forever, right? So it's negative infinity up to what? Do we include or exclude the 6? Include or exclude 6? Include, good. So from here now, we should be able to find the domain and range in the equality notation, right? The first part is just going to cover from, the domain is from -6, which is less than x, less than or equal to -2, because we're including it in that one, right? How do you write the union now? How do you write the union for an inequality? Or, good. The union represents an or statement. Or, how do you write the second part? 2 to infinity means everything that's greater than what? 2 to infinity means everything that's greater than or equal to what number? 2. So this is just x is greater than or equal to 2.
Why didn't you do a union for the range? Why is it just negative infinity?
Because the negative infinity covers up everything. Because from this point on down, this line is encompassed inside of this right here. Do you see that? It's all covered up here. That's why it doesn't matter. The range for this function is going to be from what? The smallest y value is negative infinity. The largest y value is. So that's everything that's less than or equal to what number? So how do you write that? Y less than or equal to 6. Alright, reading the domain from left to right. What's the smallest x value? Do I include or exclude -8? Include. So it's -8 to what? Try that again. -4. Why is it at negative? Why do you stop at -4? What sits at -4 on here? There's an open circle, right? Which means you're going to have what in your graph? A union. It means in your graph you're going to have a gap, so it means you need a union to cover it. So it's -8 to -4. Do I include the -4? No, because it's open circles, so I need to use this. Anytime you're using these parentheses, that means you're having gaps there, so you need unions to cover them. So this is going to be a union here. And then I go from -4 to infinity. Good. So be careful when you have open circles. Remember, those are gaps. The range. What's the smallest y value? Negative 10 is the smallest y value. What's the largest y value? Do I include negative 10? Yes, because it has a what? Closed circle. It's negative 10 to... what about this open circle right here at 4? What about this open circle here at 4? Does that matter?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Why not? Because it's going to infinity. Infinity's covering. Look at it on this side. It's already covering on this side over here. Do y'all see that? So 4 is on this side as well. So it's already covered there. So that's to infinity. So writing your domain in ranges now. Your domain is from negative 8 less than or equal to x, which is less than negative 4. Since you have the union, you need an or. The bottom one is from negative 4 to infinity. So it's going to, how do you write that? How do you write that in terms of the inequality? X has to be bigger than what number? Negative 4. So x is greater than negative 4. The range of this function is going to be from... You have to be bigger than what number to be in the to be in the range. So how do we write that? Y is greater than or equal to, because we can include negative 10, right? Y is greater than or equal to negative 10. So what you're looking for on these functions, you're looking for holes, which create the gaps or the unions, right? And you're reading left to right, top to bottom to top. Are there any questions about this stuff? All right. So today you have your homework. You have 12 problems on the graphs. But on the blue sheet, 12 problems. Right. You're writing the interval and the inequality. All right. This will be on your homework check. Your homework check. You have a homework check on Tuesday. Do you understand that? Homework check on Tuesday. So your homework will be due Tuesday. Keep that in mind. Answer keys are up here if you need to check your answers.